You don't need to be a trained therapist. You just need to be a supportive, empathic human who makes an effort to understand what someone is going through. You are part of a person's support network, not the support network.
Welcome to Philosopher Insights, the podcast that delivers wisdom in minutes a day that you can put into practice daily and strive to master over a lifetime.
The podcast committed to sharing ideas that encourage you to bridge the gap between who you are today and the person you aspire to be in the future.
Hi, my name is Herb Lamba, and welcome to my podcast, where I will share practical insights from the world's best authors.
Knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is. The quest to become the best version of you starts right now.
Hi, and welcome to Philosopher Insights. My name is Herb Lamba. Today we're discussing, yes, you can talk about mental health at work. Here's why and how to do it really well. The author of the book is Melissa Doman, and it's published back in 2021. I want to share a number of my favorite insights, starting with workplace issue, people want to talk about it, leadership stoicism, sharing with a manager, mental health isn't an excuse, you're not a therapist, advice versus understanding, leaders talk about mental health, and finish it off with a closing thought. So let's begin with the introduction. Quote, "This book is for any employee, manager, or leader, no matter the industry, who wants to understand mental health at a deeper level and learn how to talk about mental health at work in a constructive and empathetic way. Individuals, you don't need to be in a leadership position or have a team reporting to you to make an impact. Making a colleague feel safe enough to feel heard can come from anyone. The example you can set, potentially inspiring others to follow suit, can make positive waves no matter where you sit within an organization. Your impact matters, no matter what role you hold. Managers, as you sit in a position of influence and visibility, you have opportunities to create an impact on a systemic level. You have access to countless moments where you can let people know that not only can they speak about mental health to you, but also to each other, and that these conversations are not only okay, but encouraged. Management teams and company founders, this book will highlight your ability to set the tone from the top down in your organization, starting with your beliefs, actions, and conversations. It will show you how you can reshape the narrative of mental health at work and have a positive influence throughout your organization. Here's what I believe truly embracing mental health at work looks like, and what the book aims to help you work toward. Leaders are emotionally intelligent, vulnerable, and open about their own struggles to their staff. They feel encouraged by the company to prioritize their mental health. The entire staff can come to work as their whole self and not feel the need to hide certain parts of who they are empowered to speak up about mental health issues, taking mental health days as needed, and use company resources just as you would for physical health." End quote. So welcome back, friends. So I am going to dive deeper into the world of mental health, and guess what? I stumbled upon this book that I've always secretly wished someone would write. It's all about the crucial intersection of mental health and work. Because let's face it, we can't pretend it's no longer a big deal. It's time to charge ahead with open and transparent conversations in this space. Let's break down the walls and get real about the importance of mental health, especially when it comes to our work. Well, in this book, Melissa Doman has delivered the goods, and I am honored to share a handful of my favorite insights from this book, so let's begin. Quote, "Before we start, I want to remind you of an important phrase that has taken the world by storm in recent years. It's okay to not be okay. Even more importantly, it's okay to not be okay at work, and we need to remind each other of this at work." End quote. Insight number 1, a workplace issue. Quote, "Is mental health a workplace issue?" No surprise here, my answer is unequivocally yes, it absolutely is. We need to remove this unreasonable work-life partition. To play devil's advocate from a purely transactional perspective, I understand, but very much disagree, with the view of many business owners that mental health or mental illness is not a workplace issue. Speaking in sweeping generalizations, consider this. At a company, you're hired to fill a specific role, to produce specific results, and to add value to the company, thus fulfilling their business plan and purpose. So here's a visual representation. A person plus B role equals C results. However, the problem with this simple equation is it doesn't take into account the multitude of human factors that play into part A, and how A does part B. In fact, it's more like A person plus A1 factor plus A2 factor plus A3 factor plus B role equals C results. You know, the author makes a really good point. Businesses these days have to start to understand that their employees are whole people, not just workers. It's not just about the job anymore. Over time, the workforce has really opened up and expressed this desire to be able to talk about the other parts of their lives, rather than feeling like they have to keep everything separate just to be professional. When people feel comfortable being authentic, it can boost morale, productivity, and overall job satisfaction. So the key is for companies to learn how to factor in the whole person, their responsibilities, their interests, their personal struggles and triumphs, and create an environment where people feel supported, not like they have to compartmentalize their lives. Insight number 2, people want to talk about it. Quote, Mindshare Partners and Qualtrics conducted a study published by the Harvard Business Review in 2019, which found that the younger generations are overwhelmingly frustrated that mental health is still seen as a taboo and are reluctant to stay in organizations that don't talk about it and prioritize mental health. This study showed that mental health is the next evolution in diversity and inclusion, and that inclusivity around mental health and mental illness is a vital discussion in the workplace. The study found that nearly 60% of employees surveyed have never shared their mental health status at their companies. Less than half felt mental health was a company priority, and even fewer saw their managers as mental health advocates. End quote. I am so encouraged to see the younger generations taking such a bold stance on this issue. They're just not willing to put up with the old stigmas and lack of focus on mental well-being anymore. These young professionals are standing up and shouting from the rooftops, it's okay to not be okay. And that takes a ton of courage, but I really believe their willingness to speak up could be a real paradigm shift in how mental health is viewed and prioritized in the workplace. For so long, there's been this unspoken expectation that you just have to suck it up and power through, no matter what you're going through mentally or emotionally. But these younger workers are saying, nope, that's not okay anymore. They're demanding that companies and leaders create environments where it's safe to be open about your struggles and get the support you need. Quote, discussing mental health at work and doing it really well is no longer a nice to have. It's a necessity, end quote. Insight number 3, leadership stoicism. Quote, leadership stoicism, when managers are nervous to speak about their mental health because they're in a leadership position, is an entrenched problem, whether self-imposed or stemming from a company culture that dictates how a leader should behave. Some managers may believe that to have these discussions would set a good leadership example, that a good leader is strong and doesn't crack. It's almost as if the leader has to become parental in nature, showing no weaknesses or fault, so as to seem steady and consistent for their team. I've lost count of the number of leaders I've coached who, in private with me, cried about how stressed they were. They felt they couldn't show this to anyone because they were worried of what others would think, end quote. Now, we need leaders who are really looking at the whole person when they're assessing employee performance, not just the surface level metrics. But even more than that, we need leaders who are willing to lead by example. One of the best ways to open up that dialogue and create an environment where your employees feel comfortable talking about their mental health struggles is to show a little vulnerability yourself. When you, as the leader, demonstrate the courage to be open about your own challenges, it can go a long way in building that sense of trust. Because let's be real here, a lot of employees are still hesitant to be fully transparent about what they're going through, mentally or emotionally. There's still a stigma, a fear of being judged or seen as weak, but when they see their boss or manager modeling that vulnerability, it sends a powerful message. It's okay to not be okay. It takes courage to do this, for sure, but the payoff in terms of building that trust, creating a mentally healthy workplace culture, it's invaluable. Insight number 4, sharing with a manager. Quote, when it comes to your relationship with your manager, it's even more important to be clear on your why, your reasons for talking about your mental health. If you're having specific concerns when sharing with the manager, make that very clear. Because that person sits in a position of authority, it's understandable that you might be concerned about what they think. That's okay. Just create the space for them to know that and to confirm to you that your disclosure won't change anything. A good manager will not only want to help you flourish in your role, but to also make you feel included, heard, and supported in your team. If you're sharing with a manager, it's good for them to know what's going on with you, but also if there are specific next steps you feel you need, end quote. While I understand that talking to your manager about mental health struggles can really be daunting, even scary, but it's an important step to get the support you need. If your workload is leading to anxiety, health issues, and a lack of sleep, that is a clear sign something needs to change. The best way is to have an open, honest conversation with your manager. I know that's easier said than done, especially if you don't fully trust your manager, but try to approach it objectively. Explain how the job demands are impacting your well-being, and see if there are opportunities for adjustments, reduced workload, flexible scheduling, more check-ins. If you don't feel your manager can properly address this, I'd highly recommend involving HR. See what mental health resources and support systems the company has in place. I don't care what your boss says, or what the office culture demands, or what your inner perfectionist is telling you. Your mental health has to be the top priority. So please, I implore you to speak up and seek support. The work always comes second to your mental well-being, period. No exceptions. The work can wait. Your mental health cannot. Insight number 5. Mental health is not an excuse. Quote, let me be clear. Once you've told someone at work about your stress or mental health condition, don't use it as the reason that you missed a deadline, didn't complete a task, or to excuse a behavior if that stress or mental health condition was not the real reason. Not helpful. If you want your mental health struggles or a condition to be taken seriously and to constructively change the narrative around these topics, you need to be clear about what it affects, what it doesn't, and when. End quote. The author really hits on a crucial point here that I think a lot of people struggle with. When it comes to mental health challenges in the workplace, it's so important not to let those issues become a crutch or an excuse for everything you can't get done. Although I get it, dealing with things like anxiety, depression, or burnout can make it insanely difficult to stay on top of your workload and meet deadlines. But the last thing you want is for your leaders to start seeing your mental health as the go-to reason anytime something doesn't go as planned on the job. Insight number 6. You're not a therapist. Quote, you don't need to be a trained therapist. You just need to be a supportive, empathic human who makes an effort to understand what someone is going through. You are part of a person's support network, not the support network. That's why it's called a network, not a solo support. It's not your job to diagnose someone, clinically treat, or counsel them. But as part of their support network, you play a role in making someone feel heard, seen, and supported when they need it. End quote. This is from the section on how to have a conversation about mental health with your colleagues, and she reminds us that no matter the strategy that you employ to support a coworker, you are not the therapist. You are simply part of an overall support network. Your primary roles are to listen, to provide encouragement for them, to take action and recommend next steps if so required. It's not your job to try and fix everything or give them all the answers. You're just there to lend an ear and let them know you care. Validate their feelings, let them vent if they need to, and gently nudge them towards getting the professional help that they might need. Maybe that means recommending they talk to HR about accommodations, or giving them the number for your company's employee assistance program, or just reminding them to make a doctor's appointment that they've been putting off. The point is, you're there to support them, not to be their therapist. Insight number 7, advice versus seeking to understand. Quote, I remember the urge to give advice. I still get that urge now when I do coaching for leaders. Sometimes my clients just plainly ask me for advice. In those moments, even when asked, giving advice is not helpful because it prevents people from considering the options for themselves, what's specifically right for them, and is not usually what people need. While your advice may be well-intended, it may unintentionally feel like an affront, as if you are not listening. Instead, you are automatically comparing yourself to them, when this should be about them, not you. End quote. Now, I can totally relate to that. It's so easy to get carried away, especially when you have a lot of knowledge and passion around mental health. You want to help, so you start throwing out all these suggestions and stories, thinking you're being really supportive. I hope you can see how that can actually end up making it more about you and your experiences, rather than truly focusing on the person in front of you. It's a common trap to fall into, but an important one to be aware of. When someone opens up to you about their mental health struggles, the most valuable thing you can do is listen. Let them share their story, their feelings, their challenges, without interjecting with your own anecdotes or advice. Your role is to create a safe space for them to be vulnerable, not to turn it into a conversation about you and your ideas of how to fix them. Insight number 8. Leaders talk about mental health. Quote, in some cases, because of the role you hold, your team member may look to you for validation that how they're feeling is okay. Opening up that conversation between the two of you is absolutely the goal, but there's a difference between sharing and being supportive and being a boss turned psychologist. To check you're fulfilling your intended role, reflect internally on the following as the conversation unfolds. Is this just an unloading conversation with no need for further action? Would it be helpful to build in a general well-being check-in during weekly one-on-ones? Do they need to discuss changes to workload? And what do next steps look like? Can we collaborate on what this means? End quote. You know, the author really drives home this important point. The best way to help someone is to ask questions, not to just give them advice. It's so tempting to want to swoop in and tell people what they should do, especially when it comes to mental health and personal struggles. But that's not actually the most effective approach. The real magic happens when you shift the focus to enabling the other person to self-manage and make their own positive choices. That's where the lasting change and growth can come from. As the helper, your role is to guide them, not to dictate the solutions. Insight number 9, closing thought. Quote, you're not a grain of sand in an ocean. You're a rock being thrown into a lake. You will make ripples. Even though you're just one person, what you do affects people around you more than you know. How big an impact you make is ultimately up to you, but you do need to play your part in the mental health at work movement toward change. The more people do this in the workplace, the quicker change will come. Be a part of the change. Don't just observe from the sidelines. End quote. Those are some of the final words in the book. It's so easy to feel small and insignificant, to think, what difference can I really make? but the truth is the impact you have is ultimately up to you. You have the power to be a catalyst for change, to be a part of a movement towards greater mental health awareness and support. You see, the more people who step up and take that active role, the faster that change will come. It's not about just observing from the sidelines, it's about being willing to make those ripples, to be a rock that disrupts the status quo. Even if it feels like a small pebble, it can still create waves that grow and spread. So the challenge the author is putting forth is this: don't shy away from your ability to influence. Embrace the fact that you have the power to make a difference, even if it's just in your own little corner of the world. Be a part of the mental health at work movement rather than sitting back and waiting for someone else to lead the charge. I read this book out of my genuine passion for mental health, but I shared my favorite insights in hopes of creating the ripple effect needed to raise the profile of mental health in the workplace to where it needs to be. I hope after listening today that you can join the movement to keep spreading the ripples, because together we have no idea how far they can reach. Just imagine if more and more people started throwing those metaphorical rocks into the lake. The ripples would start overlapping, amplifying each other, creating this incredible groundswell of awareness and support. It's an incredibly empowering thought. Thank you for listening today, and remember to stay curious and keep embracing the wonders of knowledge. Talk to you soon. You've been listening to Philosopher Insights with your host, Herb Lambert. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.